So would you join me in giving a very, very big round of applause to Geoffrey Montague Swartz?
Thank you all. Thank you, James. That's was quite humbling when you read the biography that they've prepared for you. But yeah, so my name's Jeff. I'm an osteopath. I love my work. I'm always learning, and hopefully today we can share some ideas so that you can learn too, and I can share a little bit of my experience as a clinician and also as a practitioner who recommends Juice Plus to his patients, because we do get extremely good results with this product. So I'm very, very happy to recommend this product in the practice, and it's very well received. So the title is how to stay well in the 21st century. Now, 200 years ago we wouldn't have been having this talk, because as human beings we would have had a completely different experience of the world. And you'll see as we go through the talk why there are certain challenges that have to be met and have to be addressed in order to stay well and to avoid chronic disease. And unfortunately we are all aware of people who are, I mean, Gordon was telling me just as I arrived about a gentleman who's, had a diagnosis which he's going to work through. But, every single day of my, I know I'm in the business, but every single day I think we all hear about somebody who's facing an illness or something that, they need to work with in terms of a health challenge. And the idea is to prevent these things from happening. An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure, to quote that old famous line. So, basically everything's about balance. And we have lifestyle choices that we can make that are going to influence our health and our longevity. We can choose to smoke 20 Marlboro a day, and we know there's going to be an impact on our health if we do that. We can choose not to do that. I always say a little of what you fancy does you good, and variety is the spice of life. So, I think a moderate sort of view, and let's have some fun, but let's not take that fun to an extreme. So health equals balance of lifestyle choices. We need to make sure that we're not doing anything to excess. And quite frankly, we do see some patients who take the healthy route to excess, and they kind of make themselves ill by trying to be too healthy. So, balance is key. My main focus over the last 20-odd years has been the physical health and well-being of my patients. I'm an osteopath primarily, so we're dealing with the physical integrity of the body, structural integrity, and the fact that, if the body becomes locked up or blocked in certain areas, it's going to have a health impact. If we exercise and we stay well and we stay fit, then we're going to have fewer health problems. That's true, we know that. What's more interesting for our purpose tonight is what goes on at the cellular level, and how we need to nourish our cells correctly, and we need to bring the good stuff in and the bad stuff out at a cellular level. 75 trillion cells in the body, all needing to be nourished correctly, all needing to metabolize correctly, and that's what we're going to be talking about this evening, along with some of the other ideas that have developed and grown out of the work that I've done in naturopathic, osteopathic practice, and hopefully all will become clear as we go. I've put some bicycle wheels up there because I believe that in life, I was just talking earlier about balance, if we think of a bicycle wheel with all the different tensions in the spokes, if the tension is equal in each spoke, you're going to have a wheel that doesn't buckle. And too often we get our career spoke a little bit too tight, we get our family spoke a little bit too tight, or we have an emphasis in one area more than the others rather than having a rounded view. And I'll just encourage you to look at your lives and just see whether or not you're getting out of balance, too much tension in one spoke or another, because it's all about balance. This is Dr. William Sears, and he famously said that he believes 75% of all chronic disease is preventable. I actually agree with him. I think it's all about prevention. And here the statistics are quite shocking. These are US figures, but 1 in 3 people are living with some sort of cardiovascular disease in America. 1 in 3 women and 1 in 2 men will develop cancer. So look left, look right, and one of you is going to get cancer, statistically. 1 in 2 people will develop diabetes by 2020. 1 in 3 people are obese. Now, there's a doctor called Dr. Mark Hyman who has written a book, very well-received book, called The Blood Sugar Solution. He's coined the term diabesity, which is the idea that we've got sugar handling problems along with the obesity, and he believes that lots of us are pre-diabetics. We're seeing evidence of this. I was actually at Centre Parks with the family over the summer holidays and down in Longleat, near Bath, and I was staggered and shocked at how many of the children were probably double the weight they should have been. And that is all coming through. That's going to hit our healthcare system quite soon. And then, 116 million people are living with some sort of chronic pain in the States. So pain equals inflammation, equals stress response, equals disease process. So we've got problems coming. And we need to prevent these problems. So how do we prevent the problems? Well, we have to consume more whole foods and fewer processed foods. So how many of you, hand on heart, eat 5 servings of fruits and vegetables every day? Hands full. So 5 hands full, yeah. Okay, good. There's an awareness in the room around this topic. When we do this in a sort of public meeting where the uninitiated are in the room, we don't get that many hands going. It's a real challenge. I know what to do, and I struggle with a busy life to make sure I eat those whole foods. Trouble is, as soon as you cook them, you've taken some of the nutrition away. So it's a big challenge. If you go to the supermarket and you walk in at Tunbridge Wells, where I live, and we go into Sainsbury's, you've got 2 aisles that greet you, which is whole food, and then 16 aisles of junk. And that's the challenge. My mother used to go shopping with us, and we used to go up Crowborough High Street to the fishmonger, to the butcher, to the the fruit and veg merchant, and the different individual shops, and she'd buy whole foods and then bring them home and cook them. And unfortunately, very few of us are able to do that now, and that's partly because of time constraints and lots of other things. We do need to stay hydrated, drinking plenty of pure water. Everyone should be filtering their water. I haven't drunk tap water since I was 8. I think it's a bad idea to drink water with chlorine in it, and the organophosphates and the other things are going to get converted to cancer-forming chemicals and xenoestrogens if we don't take the chlorine out, and that's harmful. We do have to get plenty of exercise to keep the blood moving, keep the lymph moving, keep the muscles working, keep the signals in the body working properly. We have to move our body. And if our body won't move properly, you've got to go to someone who can fix it so it can move properly. That's the advertisement for osteopathic medicine. We should get adequate sleep, and unfortunately a lot of us are taking our iPads to bed, and we're sitting there with the little Wi-Fi connection going. We've got all the Wi-Fi around us nicely, over the tummy, bright light coming off us, so our pituitary gland and our pineal gland are getting messed up because the melatonin that should be being produced at 10 p.m. to send us to sleep, the gland's saying, hey, it's still, light's coming, we don't need to do that yet. So at 10 p.m. and 4 a.m. when the melatonin's supposed to kick in, you don't get it. So you don't get a good night's sleep. So you don't get the restorative sleep. So, lots of us making these mistakes without necessarily realizing the full impact. Melatonin, Google it, go and find out about melatonin. It's an antioxidant, it's longevity, it's anti-cancer, it's a lot more than just the sleep thing, okay? So that's why a lot of people are using melatonin supplementation as they get a little bit older. Managing stress is key. Anytime there's stress, there's a cortisol output, there's a stress response in the body. If cortisol gets released and it doesn't get used, then all sorts of metabolic pathways start shunting things from left to right, and we get fat storage happening, and all sorts of you could say sequelae that are not helpful to our health. So if there is stress going on, if your boss really stresses you out, take a run up the stairs and burn it off. We're designed for a saber-toothed tiger to come at us, stress us temporarily. You either survive or you die. We're not really, you could say, from the standpoint of evolution, geared up for constant stress. It's quite damaging. So if that's happening in your life, then you need to take a look at stress avoidance or stress management. And then practice prevention, which is really what I'm here to talk to you about tonight. So I'm going to be going through some of the practical ways that we practice preventative medicine. And I'll try not to go into too much, because I can talk the hind legs off a donkey. So, I'm going to try to keep it brief and succinct. If I start meandering, look bored and I'll get back on topic, okay? Great. So basically, anytime a cell is respiring or living, it produces, we take the energy in, it gets metabolized, and a bit like a car engine, you put the fuel in, you burn it, and there's an exhaust gas that comes off there's a byproduct of that. So that has to be managed. Now, in the human body, we have the hemoglobin in the blood carrying oxygen. We have the fuel, which is glucose or whatever else, some of the fats that we eat. And then there's a reaction to produce energy. Now, this is all happening in the mitochondria. These are like the powerhouses of the cell. So this is the cell with the cell membrane and all the different organs within the cell, but this is the key guy here, the mitochondrion. Now, when we get the firing of the process that we can see here, we get energy being produced. But as a result of that reaction, we get a release of what are called free radicals. Okay, so these are reactive oxygen species, and these are harmful to the body, and they actually need to be mopped up to prevent damage in the body. So basically, what happens is we lose an electron. In the process, you can see here they're paired, and then you see here how this one jumps away. Now, as this one jumps away as a result of the electron loss, that's called a free radical now. That's a damaging component in the body which will cause a cascade reaction. So it's a bit like on the M25. If one guy hits another and there's a crash, quite often there's a whole sort of cascade reaction that goes on with that. One crash causes the next. And these free radicals are going around robbing electrons from tissues and different parts of the body. So here we get erosion of cell membrane, and we get damage going on. And what we have to do is provide an antioxidant to mop up, to donate an electron back to fill that gap. And this is the antioxidant right here doing that job for us. And I'll talk a bit more about these as we go. But basically, healthy cells are your body's front line against oxidative stress. We need to make sure that we keep the cells healthy and we provide them with enough antioxidants to mop up the effects of our lifestyles. And fruit and vegetables, largely, are what we use to provide and donate those antioxidants to the body. So they're the major supplier of antioxidants. So here it is, just to show you another picture. It donates an electron, you get the unpaired electron being donated, and then that free radical is basically neutralized. So when we look at fruit and vegetables and we see what's actually in fruit and vegetables in terms of the antioxidant properties of these whole foods, we know about vitamin C, we know about the carotenoids, we know that these things are, lots of people have gone to Boots over many years and bought antioxidant, A, C and E, and thinking that would be helpful. I'll explain why that doesn't do you so much good in a moment, but basically if you have the whole foods and you're actually eating whole foods, like I'm suggesting, you're going to be getting all these different components in the food. So the resveratrol in the purple berries, anti-aging, anti-cancer. I'd encourage you to go away and look at what happens when you eat from the rainbow. If you bring these colours in to your meal, if you look at your plate and it's a rainbow, you will not go far wrong. You're going to stay healthy. The more raw the food is, the better. So that's really what we're after. And you can shop by colour. It's quite good fun, actually. And on MasterChef, quite often the guy that gets the prize in MasterChef is the one who's got the, what do they call it, the presentation right, with all the different colours and, the pretty plate. When we bring all these phytonutrients together, we spoke about vitamins and minerals. Everybody's familiar with that concept. But the phytonutrients that are there in those foods, not many people realise that there are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of phytonutrients that science is only just starting to recognise in the whole food. And a big factor are the live enzymes. So when you take a raw food, it's a living food. It provides the body with enzymes which are also vital to physiological processes. And if you're putting this into the body, then you will feel the difference. You're going to feel great. So the larger the variety, the more colour there is, the greater our well-being is going to be. And we call that the orchestra effect because everything works together. It's like, the violins with the violas, with, everything's working together in concert to make, the whole thing happen the way it's meant to. So, if we start talking about DNA damage, now, we all know about the genetic, in the cell we've got DNA, we're sort of carrying these genes which have information, and, if we start damaging our DNA, that has profound implications for cell renewal and general health. The things that will cause damage to the DNA, which is significant, are things like, the smokers, and the air we breathe, the smog, radioactive components. And I would include EMFs there, the Wi-Fi that we have. These technologies are all very good, but we need to use them sensibly. Telephones, you need to be careful with these devices. Don't put them to your ear too much. We know that this is a problem waiting to happen. Different medicines are going to cause problems. Polluted water. If you look at the history of this company that's behind Juice Plus, you're going to find that they were addressing this, air quality, they were addressing this many, many years ago, for good reason. Grilled foods that are burned, smoked foods, alcohol consumption, poor nutrition, processed food, etc., etc. Here's stress. All of this is harmful to us. And that's why this conversation is happening now in 2013, and necessarily wouldn't have happened 200 or 300 years ago, because quite a lot of those things wouldn't have actually been in the frame. So we've got a challenge for these times, and needs to be solved. Hands up, who's got that in their mouth? Okay, do you understand the implications of having a known neurotoxin leaking into your body every single day? Okay. Write this down if you've got a pen. Go on YouTube and type in smoking tooth. Okay. This presentation will be available as a PDF, emailable. We're going to see if we can get it uploaded to YouTube as well, so you can see these links that I give you. But to start you off, when you get home, go smoking tooth, and the other one you can type is University of Calgary mercury toxicity. And I won't tell you any more. It's interesting. Okay? Mercury will leak from your fillings into your body permanently. It is a known neurotoxin, and if we're talking about oxidative stress and what we need to do to mop up the effects of toxins and poisons, then this needs to be dealt with. I would also encourage you to look for a biological dentist who doesn't think it's okay for you to have metal in your mouth. We have one in our clinic in Tunbridge Wells. We have dentists and doctors and all sorts of lovely people who can... So that's another advert for Joseph, but yeah, it needs looking at. So here we are, the free radical theory of human aging. So we've basically said this already. If you lose an electron here and you create a free radical, this little guy will go around causing damage. Cell membrane, mitochondrial damage, you get lipid peroxidation. This is a lipid bilayer, this cell membrane, that will get destroyed. You'll get the DNA being damaged and mutated. You're going to get protein damage at the binding sites on the cell membrane. It's not a pretty picture. So the antioxidants are going to mop up the free radicals for us and protect us. And here we are. Every single time we're producing energy from the mitochondrion, we're releasing these free radicals as an exhaust. And that is the problem. And if we're dealing with a harsh environment at the same time, we have to flood the system with the antioxidant nutrients to pick up the mess. I've made my point, I think. If the mitochondria of the body are not working properly, if the cells are not working properly, this is what's going to happen. You're going to get people telling you how knackered they are all the time. And we see this in the clinic constantly. Low energy states in people. They don't look well, they don't feel well. They drag themselves out of bed. There's no zing. So we can change that for them. The government are trying. They're sort of telling us that, we need to eat 5 a day, and the message is the Eat Well plate, as you can see here. Lots of nice whole foods. There are all the salads and the vegetables, and here we've got the grains. I will just say I have reservations about this aspect, because a lot of people have got... Grains are anti-nutrients. They are pro-inflammatory. I think about 25% of people now have got an issue with gluten. The way the grains are farmed, they're sprayed, They're bred for hardiness. I don't think it's necessarily a good idea to put these grains in your body in this sort of quantity. And certainly when we're dealing with patients with rheumatoid arthritis and autoimmune disease and inflammatory diseases, as soon as we take the grains out, they start to feel better. The idea here is to stay away from processed junk and move more towards whole foods. They're trying their best, but not quite there yet. So all of us know people that are dealing with cardiovascular problems, blood pressure. Look, the drug companies are going absolutely to town on trying to get blood pressure down to a certain... Anyone medically qualified in the room? Anyone dealing with this regularly? No? Most of the people over 50 are going in, they're getting a blood pressure test and they're being told, oh, your blood pressure's a bit... No, it used to be your age plus 100 when I graduated. So I'm 47 actually on Friday. So my blood pressure would be 147 on 90. That would have been okay 25 years ago. Now, if I went in and it was 147, my doctor would be trying to convince me it needs to be down at like 125, 130, and I need a pill. That doesn't, obviously, that doesn't wash with me, but a lot of people think, oh, okay, for prevention, let's do that. Well, who's doing well out of that? Right. So anyway, there's a lot of that going on. And there are a lot of people experiencing and knowing friends and family who are getting these sort of problems, and there are things you can do to prevent this from happening. And anyway, here's a little sort of alternative view on what you can do if there's a blood pressure issue, as well as obviously change your diet. Here, just as a sort of transcendental meditation, go away and get mindful, learn what to do, and you can see here, transcendental meditation, health education, control technique, transcendental meditation, drop the blood pressure massively just by sitting still and focusing. And so there are lots of different things you can do. People with blood pressure, incidentally, we tend to put them on the 5 and 2 diet. We like to give them a little bit of fasting. We obviously get them on whole foods, take the grains out. There's stuff you can do, which I'll talk about in a while, which are pertinent to tonight's conversation. But yeah, don't buy into the whole thing where you feel a pill is the solution, because it really isn't the best option. This EPIC heart study was interesting because here, it's a very well-known study. Some of you may have seen this already. Fruit and vegetable intake reduces risk of fatal coronary heart disease. So they basically looked at a population. They looked at who was eating 8 or more servings of fruit and vegetables per day. Okay, they found statistically that those that were eating 8 or more were 22% less likely to have a heart attack. That's quite a big figure. 22% is a big figure in these sort of studies. And here, when they looked at it a bit more, I'll read this because it might be difficult for you to read. Commonly one hears the clinical line of argument, if fruit and vegetables are protective, why not isolate the protective nutrient, put it in a pill, and thereby dispense with worry about diet? Good idea. Unfortunately, that approach has not proved useful. Trials of antioxidant vitamins, and this is key to understand, have not led to reductions in either cancer or cardiovascular disease. That may be because antioxidant vitamins, just about the vitamins here, okay, were not the crucial protective components. Or is it the foods and indeed dietary patterns that are important, not specific micronutrients? So now you're getting a bit of a clue that the supplement industry over the years has just been using isolated vitamins, not the whole food. Bear that in mind because we'll talk about this a bit later. So essentially here, it says cardiovascular disease is the most common cause of death. A reduction of 22% is huge, but this reduction in mortality comes with consumption of 8 portions a day. Who's doing 8 portions a day in the room? Well done. Okay. Not many people do that. Such high consumption was found in only 18% of the men and women in these 8 cohorts. Case in point, okay? 18% of the population. So, we've got something to fix. This is a big one. For me personally, it's a big one in the practice. We see too much inflammation going on. The secret killer. If you cut your finger and you damage yourself, you're going to get inflammation and you're going to get healing as a result of the inflammation. Short term, it's fine, no problem. Long term, this is a Crohn's type picture in the bowel. See all the inflammatory factors going on in there? Chronic inflammation in the body. What's the trigger? What's causing that inflammatory response in that tissue? Too often, doctors and medical colleagues will look at this, and I mean, credit to them, the best solution they've got is to identify the fact that there's inflammation and then treat the inflammation. Fair dues, they're not really asking the question, why is it happening? Because that's not what they're trained to do at the moment. They will give you relief by giving you a steroid medicine and an autoimmune adjusting medicine, and generally, it can help you. But there are factors that we need to discuss tonight which will help understand more about the primary causes. So inflammation is actually behind so many diseases that we see now in the 21st century, from all of the sort of well-known degenerative diseases and chronic diseases. Inflammation is sitting there in the background, slow burning. Inflammation is the enemy, literally. If you can switch off the inflammation, you're going to go a long way to keeping yourself well. Greater variety in fruit and vegetable intake is associated with lower inflammation in Puerto Rican adults. So if you're in Puerto Rico and you're doing as they did here, you're going to have less inflammation, but it applies to all of us. They found that variety, not quantity, remember that, of fruit and vegetable intake was inversely associated with an FRS. That's a Framingham reactive study. It's a health marker for inflammation. And they found that after making all the adjustments, people who ate a large variety of fruit and vegetables were showing less C-reactive protein, which is an inflammatory marker, in their blood. So it's not necessarily just about the amount of fruit and vegetables you have, it's about the variety, which comes back to the orchestra effect and all the colours. So you're starting to get you're connecting the dots now, I can see. So with cancer, this study is worth looking at. Food, nutrition, physical activity and the prevention of cancer. They did a global study. They looked at it inside out, the World Cancer Research Fund, and basically in summary they said exercise reduces the risk of cancer in colon, breast and prostate by 30 to 50%. Get moving, get exercising. Hands up who does enough exercise. Yes. So some hands are not going up. So that's because you know that you're not necessarily doing as good as you could. Okay, so most diets that are protective against cancer are mainly made from foods of plant origins. That's the World Cancer Research Fund telling us to move more, get our bodies exercised, get strong, and eat whole foods. Same message. Now then we come to the drive to try and stay well and how markets spring up and solutions are provided. And here, this is the cover of Time magazine, 1992. I was newly in practice at this point. I was very excited about the prospect of vitamins, and we were doing urine analysis, and we were finding vitamin C deficiencies and giving people vitamin C. And my boss at the time, who came from a naturopathic background, said, "Jeff, it's expensive urine. You're wasting your time with this. It's bollocks." I'm like, "Oh, you're an old, you don't know, you're kind of all just about to retire. What do you know?" And actually, he was right. Because basically, laboratory-produced supplements are not and haven't measured up to close scrutiny in terms of the research, in terms of an effect. It's not good for supplements, okay? Whole food state supplementation is coming out much, much better in the research. And that's because we're dealing with the whole. We're dealing with the orchestra effect. We're dealing with all the colours. We're dealing with the varieties there. Now, because everybody realised there was a problem, they started thinking, well, how can I solve my problem? So they would go to the supermarket, buy all this whole food produce, and then think, how can I get it into my body really easily? And they started juicing. There's a guy called Humbert Santillo. This book is worth getting if you can find it. He was essentially looking for a solution, and he was going out selling juicers, and the problem with juicing, and we have a very nice Huron slow masticating juicer, 350 quid's worth of juicer. Love the juice that comes off it. Doesn't destroy the nutrients. You put some organic produce in there, you get a lovely, lovely juice. Safe, clean, good for you. Trouble is, I do it once a week. It's too much hassle. And that's what he found. Everyone went out and bought juicers, even expensive juicers, and they just sat in the cupboard. So he looked for a solution and came up with the idea of Juice Plus. Let's take the juice and take the water out without heating it, without destroying the nutrition and the enzymes, and encapsulate the product. And the reason that that was a good idea over a vitamin is because if you take an apple and you look at what's actually in an apple versus what's in a multivitamin, these are the phytonutrients that are available in an apple. Okay? One fruit, and that's what's in it. You can't get that in a vitamin. And they probably haven't even discovered the other half of what's in an apple, you know? So that's why food state supplementation is going to be the way forward, the future. And I will just say one thing, which is to do with EU regulations, and you may not be aware of this, but food in a capsule is going to escape the new safe limits legislation coming from Europe. There is legislation for herbal medicine which has already destroyed our herbal medicine business. We can't get hold of a lot of the herbs now because they're classified as unlicensed. So if you want milk thistle, you're only going to get milk thistle that is drug company licensed. Right? You're not going to get an organic spagyric milk thistle anymore. The EU are looking to do safe limits legislation on supplements, and you're going to struggle soon, within probably a couple of years, to see the vitamins that you've had access to, in terms of normal vitamins, they'll just start disappearing because they won't comply with the new legislation. Whole foods are foods. They're not going to get caught by that legislation. If you understand the significance of that, you're going to see that there's a really nice opportunity to actually continue to provide people with what they need to stay well and dodge the, I would say, concerted effort on the part of the people who are behind that legislation to make sure that you can't get hold of natural medicines. Juice Plus is a whole food-based nutritional supplement. They have taken the fruits, they've taken the vegetables, and they've taken the berries, and they've picked them ripe, they've grown them clean, they've juiced them, they've taken away the water at a low temperature, taken away the sugar, so the fructose element isn't a worry for people with sugar handling problems, key point, encapsulated it and delivered it to us in a very, very convenient form. That's why I recommend this product to my patients, because it gets us past the problem of the juicer and going to the shops. It's just convenient and it's cheap and it just works. And what's in the product, if you look at the label, look at it carefully, because you've got the fruit pulps, you've got all the stuff that is there, but you've also got lactobacillus, you've got all sorts of additional components in there that are, very, very helpful to us. Okay, so if we look at the garden blend, you can see some spirulina added. Not many people realise that these additional components are in there. Probiotic factors, so you start to get to the point, sea algae, you start to get to the point where if you look at what you're spending on your various vitamins and enzymes and probiotics, that actually you just put those to one side and don't use those anymore, take a product like this and you're going to be quids in with a better effect. Here's the berry, the vineyard blend. This is absolutely the product for me. I'm getting older. If you want anti-aging and protection against, what's coming, this is the one. And a lot of people will say to you, look, I eat enough fruit and veg. Do you? Really? Okay, great, I'm happy for you. How many berries do you eat? Can you afford to eat those berries? Little tub of blueberries, even in Asda, and I'm careful what I say, but, it's expensive. And if you're going to juice those berries, it's going to get really expensive. Anyway, this has been done for you. And here you can see L-arginine in there. I was talking about blood pressure earlier. Does anyone know what L-arginine is? Okay, it's an amino acid which is a vasodilator. It opens up blood vessels. If you open up blood vessels, what does that do to blood pressure? Right, L-arginine. So basically, if you provide a whole bunch of antioxidants, all the colours, all the variety, plus these other factors, you're going to see results in your own health and the people that you recommend it to. And it acts as a gap filler. So, I've got kids. Hands up who has that at mealtime sometimes at home. Right. Now, we've all got children that are, sometimes picky eaters and, they're not liking the idea of what they should be eating. And we have got a tremendous, I think, no, there aren't any here, but there are some chewable products which are basically gummies, and they've got the powders in them, and the kids go mad for these things. They absolutely love them. And in the practice, what we do is we have a big bowl of them out as samples, and the kids just, I mean, when they come, that's like their little reward at the end, but then the parents get to see, and we get to sort of talk to them a little bit about the whole concept. And essentially, you know, you're filling the gap. So for the moment, while the child isn't inclined to eat these whole foods, you can actually be confident that they've got the the nutrition there that they need, and results will follow. Also for us, it's a gap filler. It's a nutritional safety belt. You know, as I say, I've been busy today. I left early, accountants meeting, came to London. Lunch was a sandwich. You know, tonight I don't know whether I'm going to get a really nice meal. I know that I'm covered because my Juice Plus is providing me with that raw food state nutrition. So really, it's a no-brainer. So also, find out about the Children's Health Study, because for those of us that want to use this product, Juice Plus, we can sponsor a child and they will deliver that product to the child for free, because they're trying to encourage children to use the product. You're seeing fewer doctors' visits. The research, the Children's Health Study is worth looking up on the website. More children start to eat whole foods as a result of being on the product. It's almost like as the product comes in, they start to get receptive to broccoli and beans and everything else, spinach. So we certainly saw that in my family. Here's the research which backs up what I've been saying. I'm not going to go into all the different research elements because actually there was a very nice webinar on Monday night. If you didn't see that webinar, get the link. Richard Dubois, who's a MD in the States, you need to see that webinar if you're interested in the research component for this particular product. Basically, we know it's bioavailable. It's absorbed by the body. We know from studies that oxidative stress, the thing I was talking about earlier, free radicals, this shows up in the blood and reduces oxidative stress. It will reduce key biomarkers of systemic inflammation. What were we talking about earlier? Inflammation is the enemy. If you take the product Juice Plus, you are going to reduce inflammatory markers. It supports a healthy immune system, bless you. It helps protect DNA damage. It supports cardiovascular wellness on lots of fronts. Homocysteine, which is a very important component to cardiovascular disease, is really nicely modified by this product. Go away and find the research. It supports healthy skin and gums. A lot of people that take the product, they look great. Skin looks good. You can notice it. It's the most researched brand name nutritional product in the world. Check the research for yourselves. Really, really easy to do. For me personally, I can confidently talk to my patients about this product. I can talk to colleagues about this product because you can't argue with the research. Now, how long have we got? Because, James, how much time have I got now? Because I want to sort of expand the theme a little bit now, okay? 15?
Yeah,
thanks, that's enough, thanks. So, so the kind of practice I run, I invariably come up against closed minds, okay? Because it's a little unconventional, what I do. And I want to talk to you a little bit about how we work and the sort of technology we're using, the lab tests we're using, and how we see things from that standpoint. So basically, closed minds are not unusual but there's nothing more dangerous than a closed mind, because really what you want people to be is an open-minded skeptic. So when you present ideas to them, like we've just done, even if there's a little bit of resistance, you'd like somebody to say, okay, that's interesting, I will be open-minded enough to go and have a look at what you've just presented to me. Not everyone's like that. But in our practice, we use this template to try and bring health and well-being to the patients. And we are a bit like the last chance saloon. The practice in London, very much so. After many years of being in Tunbridge Wells, we get a lot of the sick notes who've been everywhere else, couldn't get better, and they've heard that the results are there. So I'm very privileged to be able to work with those people and see the results. but we use this model. So we have this idea that there is a sort of a template for wellness which can be worked with, and you just have to know what to do and go through the steps in the right way. And it's actually very, very simple and straightforward. We start by getting cellular communication working properly, and then we need to encourage the liver to work correctly, and we need the biliary system, which is the bile ducts and all the juices that come from the liver, to work properly, and the adrenal stress response needs to be balanced. And then we go looking for causative factors which may have triggered the imbalance in the patient in the first place. And then once we've done the repair work, we maintain the effect with lifestyle recommendations that will then keep them well. So there's an educational component as we go through this process. So we're treating them, but we're teaching them at the same time. And the word doctor actually means teacher. That's our job. It's not that we have the white coat and we do it for them or to them. We teach them to be able to do it for themselves. Okay? So patient assessment, as an osteopath, we're very interested in how the body works and if there are any blockages to what's going on physically in the body. And that's because at every spinal segment we've got nerves exiting, going to different organ systems. And this is called a viscerosomatic reflex. So if you have a blockage in the middle of the spine, it can affect stomach function, and you can end up with a stomach ulcer because you had a whiplash here when you were 18. So this is what we're sort of seeing, and it's basically the fundamental principles of osteopathic medicine. So basically structure governs function, and we have techniques to unlock the problem areas, get everything moving again. Here you can see the autonomic nervous system. The cranium and the sacrum need to be moving freely. The autonomics, when they're working properly, will bring balance and homeostasis and correct function to the organ systems of the body. So it's very difficult to be well if you've got serious blockages in that physical form that is our vehicle. Okay. We then do lab work, so we'll often send samples. We'll do stool samples off to the lab. We'll do saliva samples, blood samples. We'll look for vitamin D levels. So all of that, which is kind of conventional, we'll do. And what is slightly more unconventional is using this instrument. This is an EAV machine. Now, you heard James when he introduced me. He said, Jeff is an advanced practitioner of EAV, bioresonance medicine, and no one knows what the hell that is. But basically, EAV means electroacupuncture, according to Voll. Dr. Voll was the German doctor who in the 40s realised that you could actually measure the energetic flow coming through the meridians. And depending on how the energetic flow was working through the meridian, it gave you an idea of the integrity of the meridian system. So it's a way of measuring the meridian system. Okay. Now, what we'll do with our patients is we'll start to open systemic drainage. Now, if you've got toxins in the body, they have to be got rid of. So we'll use herbal-based medicines. We're going to use all sorts of, a lot of the components that are in the Juice Plus product will initiate, juice detox. Jason Vale, everyone's seen that. He's running juice detox retreats. Well, we've got that in capsules. You don't have to go and, as nice as he is, you don't have to sit with him and do your juice detox. You can do it, So we've got the drainage factors that we need to work with. We have to get nutrient uptake working. Now, if there's a damaged gut and the gut bacteria are not balanced, we need to flood the system with good bacteria. We need to heal and seal the mucosa of the digestive tract so that the nutrients are going in properly and we're not getting like leaky gut where larger food molecules are getting in through and causing an inflammation and food sensitivities. So we need good colon health, we need enzyme function working, and actually Juice Plus will take care of an awful lot of those requirements. We need to make sure the patient is properly hydrated, because if you don't hydrate properly, the blood gets sticky, the red blood cells stick together, and they can't deliver the oxygen, and So you have to make sure that you're drinking enough, and we have to make sure that the pH balance is correct. It needs to err on the side of alkalinity, so we need to be alkaline, not acid. Who knows what the pH of Juice Plus is? Anyone measured it? 8.5, alkaline. Nice, okay. Right, so once we've got those basics working and we've educated the patient a little bit into whole food nutrition, and maybe we're getting them off the grains, Then we start to work with lymph drainage. Now these are homeopathic preparations, and we've got 3 levels of homeopathic drainage. And typically, if you get sick, the body seeks to eliminate and excrete. So if you get a gut virus, what happens? You get poops, don't you? Diarrhea. Good. Diarrhea is good when you're sick. It's eliminating. Now, if you can't get it out, if you can't vomit it out or snot it out, or, you get the idea, then we get more of an acute reaction, which will lead to inflammation. So the body is then going, well, I couldn't get rid of it easily, so now I'm going to just set up an inflammatory response, and then the immune system is going to go where there's inflammation and try and get rid of the problem. Now, in Germany, in some clinics, they're giving people viruses to cause inflammation and heat to kill the cancer, because they induce fever, and then the immune system goes where the cancer is. Very interesting. Now, if you can't eliminate or inflame the thing out, which is where this lymph 1 remedy works, you get the accumulation of that xenobiotic. Now, a xenobiotic, like the mercury in your tooth, a xenobiotic is a foreign biological agent. It's something that is there but shouldn't be there. Okay? Now, if you can't get rid of that, you get it accumulating into the ground matrix substance, which is like the cellular matrix, and the body seeks to eliminate it, but if it can't do it, it actually compensates for the fact that it's there, like your amalgam filling sits there, and the body would get so exhausted fighting this foreign biological agent that you would actually die fighting. So it says, do you know what? I'm just going to pretend this is supposed to be here, and I'm going to turn it into a rigid response. Rather than an alarm response in the immune system, it becomes a rigid response, and the body then can't even see that it's there anymore. And it gets cloaked, it gets compensated for, and that leads to degeneration. So many people are running around with cloaked disturbances. They're riddled with toxicity, and the body can't even recognise that it's there anymore, because it can't mount the fight, because there's no energy for the fight. And that's what we're dealing with these days. The science of this is called homotoxicology, the toxic nature of man, or the science of studying the toxicity of man, homotoxicology. Yes.
So if somebody is like an alcoholic,
Yeah.
and they keep on drinking and drinking and drinking, and then when they stop, is that what happens? There's a toxic release, and then the body starts realising that, or starts recognising that the toxins are there, and then they become really sick.
Absolutely.
Is that what happens?
Yeah. So you get the healing crisis. That can happen that way. It won't always happen. Sometimes they'll just head down and die. So, yeah. But what we do in our work is we actually test for which remedy is required in what, the instance that we're with and we can kind of see what stage they are at on this process from the kind of remedy that turns up. So it gets quite complicated. It's easy to teach, and we do teach this, and more practitioners now are understanding that it's something that they need to learn. So basically, once you've sort of started along that road, you need to make sure that you've got adrenal stability and that the liver is working properly in phase 1, and there are 2 or 3 phases to liver function, but essentially methylation or detoxification in the liver is primary. So if that isn't working properly, we provide remedies to help with that. So here you can see there's a remedy there called hepatogest, and here's a gut remedy to make sure that it's called GALT, the gut-associated lymph tissue. 70% of your immune system is gut modulated. Most modern disease is because the microbiome in the digestive system is just so far away from what it should be. Hence the upsurge in sales of probiotics. The problem with most probiotics, the stomach acids kill the good bacteria that the Yakult and whatever else. The stomach acid is there to stop bacteria getting into you. So you have to use certain types of probiotics, normally spore form probiotics, which is what we recommend to really get the job done in extreme cases. So, am I rushing ahead and going? Is everyone okay? Yeah, good. Right, so when we look at adrenal function, we run saliva tests to see what's going on. So we look for the unbound cortisol, which is a stress hormone in the saliva. And you can see here that the 8 a.m. sample for this patient was actually not too bad. Got to lunchtime. Who gets a lunchtime dip? Right. Quite often it's your adrenals just not being quite up to speed. And here you can see these three readings, midday, 6 o'clock and just before bed were all low. And the DHEA, which is the deeper adrenal hormone, was also very, very low. And here we looked at progesterone, and where you're meant to get a progesterone surge at ovulation, this lady was missing that surge. When you're low cortisol, the body robs progesterone. It's called progesterone steal. So stressed women in their mid-30s, career women normally, desperate for a baby, unexplained infertility, progesterone steal is what's going on. They're using their progesterone to top up their deficient adrenals, leaving no progesterone, which is progestation, to complete the pregnancy. So it's very, very easy to fix. Forget IVF. There's a case for IVF. I have to be careful what I say here. If you don't look at this first, then you could be down a route that is just way, way, way unnecessary and full of drugs and things that you don't necessarily need. So with this case, which was an infertility case, we could see that she was doing the progesterone steal thing. The estrogen was also all over the shop. So basically we just fixed the adrenals, gave her a little bit of progesterone support by way of a cream, and happy days. So phase 3, once we've got the adrenals working, the liver working, and the gut working, and detox working, we then need to look at the specific causative factors that are making that patient unwell. So we start going then we're then hunting specific xenobiotics. If it is the mercury in your teeth, then let's find it and deal with it. If it's the amoebic infection that you had in Egypt 6 years ago, Giardia, and you came back from your holiday with the squits and the thing and you weren't that great, and then a year later the IBS started and no one can fix the IBS. Quite often the causative agent is the Giardia. The body held on to it, never quite let go, the pattern is there, and it's like the revolving doors. So we need to then look for the deeper factors. Some of them are emotional, mental, some of them are familial. We're going to talk about epigenetics in a minute, what we get from our family tree. But basically miasms in homeopathic medicine is about what we inherit. So we then start to use remedies which will specifically drain certain organ systems. Here is a liver drainage with a liver detox, with a thyroid rebalance because the thyroid hormones are balanced in the liver, and then an emotional remedy. So that might be a typical prescription that we would use for a liver toxicity, alcoholic kind of situation. Now the EAV instrument will measure each meridian. So you can see here all the different meridians are measured, and you can see where green is balanced, red is stressed, and yellow is weakened. So we can get a very clear picture of where the system is in trouble. So here the urinary bladder pathway was in quite a bit of trouble, and the gallbladder pathway here with a big indicator drop and weak. So we can actually very specifically work out where the patient is in trouble, and then we can actually do some testing to see which remedies are going to bring that altered meridian flow back to balance. Now, I'm going to explain homeopathy now, hopefully simply, because a lot of people misunderstand what it is, and a lot of what we need to do to chase these signatures or the bioresonant factors that are in the body causing us ill health, we can't do that with drug-based medicine, with herbs, and with nutritionals. We have to use homeopathy. So to understand that, if we have the frequency of a substance that is disturbing us, or has disturbed us, or caused illness in the past, it has its own unique energetic fingerprint, or resonant frequency. We all have our own unique resonant frequency, and everything has that as well. Now, if that comes into the body and causes a disturbance, and typically if there's an emotional component to that illness, it locks in at the cellular level, and you never let go of it. It's like a ghost. Elvis never leaves the building. Hotel California, you can check in but you can't leave, and that's what happens. We need to find out what that frequency is, and then we need to invert it. It's basically physics, not chemistry. Homeopathy is not biochemical in nature. It's biophysics that we're doing. That's why doctors don't get it. It's physics, not chemistry. So we take the inverted signature, we feed it back to the body, and what you end up with is a neutralization of that effect. It's really very, very simple to explain.
Sorry, how do you invert frequency? Because normally I thought you take the whatever illness is and dilute it down.
Well, the dilution effect is doing the inversion. So you end up with very little of the molecular the water, which is a liquid crystal, so like a solid, like ice is solid crystal. Crystals hold energy, so water is liquid crystal, we're 70% water. As soon as you put the substance into the water, it takes up the energetic signature of that substance, and then by a sequence of dilutions, you essentially invert. The more dilute it becomes, the more inverted it is. The less dilutions, the closer to material substance. So a 1x remedy will work like a herb, a 24x remedy will work more homeopathically into the energetic template. Good question, thank you. But that's how we're inverting it. And essentially, the homeopathic law of similars, which you just mentioned, is that if you take the thing that will cause the disturbance and you invert it, you end up with the curative effect. And we're dealing with ghosts. I mean, it's literally ghost hunting. If you walked into a room and you saw that or that in the corridor, there'd be a physical reaction. I know, I mean, I've had these experiences, and believe me, it leaves a reaction. Now, the body's reacting to ghosts. That giardia, that bowel infection in Egypt, left its ghost behind, and unless we do Ghostbusters, the body just keeps reacting, keeps setting up an inflammatory response, as if the physical thing was still there. That's the take-home message. So, once we've done the causative factors and we've eliminated those using the specific homeopathic remedies and the drainage medicines, then we get into constitutional work, well-being programs, and now typically we're going to send people away with remedies that will keep them well. Juice Plus, vitamin D, fish oils. You know, you get the idea. There are certain things that we should just all take as a foundational protocol, and I've got those listed in the what I use. How are we doing for time, James? 5 minutes? Yeah. Okay, I'm nearly done. So basically, the new science of epigenetics. We spoke earlier about what comes through from the family. Well, epigenetics quite literally means above the gene. Epigenetics means above the level of genetics. And we know that you can turn bad genes off and you can turn good genes on. So if your mother had breast cancer or your father had bowel cancer, you don't necessarily have to have the same journey. If you take what I've just said seriously and you look at all these factors, you use whole foods. There are so many studies that show that whole food-based nutritional dietary modifications will literally turn the genes, the good genes on, and will eliminate the damage at the level of the DNA. We've seen the research for that. So basically the bad stuff is carried through the generations. What your grandmother ate, what your grandmother smoked, unfortunately is having an effect on you. And actually in homeopathic law we know that basically everything goes 7 generations. So what my grandma had is expressed into me. At the 3rd generation it's at its most potent, and it's disappearing off through 4, 5 and 6. But we are carrying these things through many, many levels of familial ancestry. You'll see these slides. Go and look at this. Epigenetic. I mean, I could explain it to you, but why? This guy does a brilliant job explaining epigenetics. If you don't, share this with people as well, and get them to see it, because it's just a brilliant explanation, very funny. And this is another one to find on YouTube. The Ghost in Your Genes, which was a Horizon piece. It was about the study they did in Sweden, and basically it just blew the lid on the whole, epigenetic factors. They talk about junk DNA. Well, junk DNA, really? Is there any junk in our DNA, really? All the scientists now are getting very excited about what we've been talking about and what the ancients have been talking about for millennia, and they're starting to, and it's coming to us now. Quantum medicine, bioresonance, love it. Validates what we're doing. Love it. Sorry, I get a bit carried away. Right, recommendations for staying well. So basically the beginning slide was how to stay well in the 21st century. I hope I've helped you understand how I see it and what we do with our patients. But basically keep physically active and free from injury, pain and disease processes. Eat whole, unprocessed traditional foods, like your grandma used to make. Learn how to make your own sauces. You know, don't buy what's in the packets. I was saying to Gordon earlier, thank God we don't live in the States, because they are not labelling their genetically modified foods. Who's seen Genetic Roulette on YouTube? Who's seen that film? Good, write it down. Genetic Roulette. Jaw-droppingly scary, crazy, crazy, crazy what's going on over there. And then put it on Facebook and tell everyone to look at it. I did that and I got no likes. At least I made the effort. You know.
I'm sorry, transdermal iodine, is that Lugol's?
Yes, you can go on the internet and you can buy Lugol's solution, and then you put it on your skin and you wait 2 or 3 hours. If it's disappeared into your skin, then you need iodine supplementation. That's how I kind of, you know. And if it sits there and it doesn't get sucked in, then you're probably okay for iodine. I mean, obviously you can do lab tests, but stain the skin with iodine and then see what the response is. And you know, a lot of us are iodine deficient. I mean, my dad used to call me a cretin when I was young, just as an endearment thing. There are real cretins around now. I mean, I wasn't a cretin. He called me that, but I mean, you've got to be careful now if you say you cretin, because there are actually real cretins, because there is an iodine deficiency causing cretinism. This is a Victorian disease, and I mean, you know. Yeah, drink plenty of clean water, fresh air and sunshine. We know that if you expose the body to sunshine, you're going to get vitamin D. Don't be frightened of the sun. Don't use toxic sun creams. Tan safely. If you're going to use a sun cream, make sure it's organic. I reckon that down the line they're going to show skin cancer is more about the toxic sun creams that people have been using rather than the actual... My friend Davey, who was a naturopath who moved to Marbella, lived 3 years in Marbella. He used Del-Isle sun cream for 3 years. He's an Irishman, bald, and basically was worried. And he had skin cancer all over his head, neck and face where he used this product. I told him I said, you will harm yourself with that stuff. He didn't listen. He's still alive, he's fine. He's had to have it dealt with. Be careful of the sun creams if they're not organic. Avoid the environmental pollutants as much as possible. Buy a filter, don't be a filter. We encourage the elimination of toxins with the methods I've told you about already this evening. We use the right supplemental protocols, Juice Plus, Vitamin D, probiotics, transdermal iodine. Get some good oils in there, coconut oil, get some fish oils in there for the cell membranes, and stay happy. Find your bliss, meditate, mindfulness, and that really is how to stay well in the 21st century. I really hope that's been of interest, and I'm really grateful that you've asked me. Thanks, James and Gordon, for the invitation this evening. It's an opportunity to share these ideas, and I'm exceptionally excited about what we do and what we're finding, and I'm just happy to share the information. Thank you very much.